Hey folks, see if you've ever had this problem. You're trying to eat a little healthier, but you're in the grocery store aisle, you're looking at packaging, nutrition labels, and they're so confusing, you don't know what's good for you and what's not. Well, this is why I love Thrive Market, my go-to online grocery store for getting all of my healthy essentials delivered, and I don't even have to leave my couch. Finding better options for the whole family is easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. Just scan a product and it instantly recommends healthier swaps. This is how my wife and I found our new favorite snack, IQ bars. Sometimes I eat one in the morning with my coffee, sometimes just later on in between meals. They also have so many on-site filters that make it simple to shop by the needs of everyone in the family. Maybe you have someone who needs gluten-free food, somebody that has a peanut allergy. Well, no more scouring ingredient labels when you can just filter it all on Thrive Market. My wife and I often use the high protein filter to stock up on things like Sieti chips. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/TCAT for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/TCATT, thrivemarket.com/TCAT. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 389 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing very well. My wife and I got a new dog.
I know. She was sitting in my chair. I was like, what's up with this?
I showed her off on the video on Patreon, but another little Maltese. You know, we have a Maltese now, and so we wanted another one. We really like them.
Yeah.
She's a cutie. Her name is Ivy.
Not poison either.
No, not poison. She is very, very sweet. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Hayden Bushnell.
What's going on, Hayden?
Mountain.
Hey, Mountain.
James Edinger.
Well, thank you, James.
Ruby Perez.
There's Perez.
Miguel Salas.
What's going on, Salas?
Dana Allison.
Hey, Dana.
Jesse Donovan.
Well, thank you, Donovan.
KMCC.
What's up, KMCC?
Melissa Mitchell.
Hey, Melissa.
And last but not least, Sarah Thrasher.
Man, she's a thrasher.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Amy.
What's going on, Amy?
Yeah, thanks for all the new support, the continued support on Patreon. We also had a great PayPal donation from Elizabeth Horn.
Hey, thanks, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks to everyone. So Gibbs, right now we have an episode out on Unsolved where we're talking about this guy named James Barrier, also known as Buffalo Jim. He was kind of a little celebrity in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But he got into a feud over a strip club, and there's mafia ties. There's all kinds of stuff wrapped up into this case.
Very interesting.
Yes, it really, really is. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am ready.
We are jam-packed as we get into part two and finish up this story on Jodi Arias. In part one, we covered the early lives of Jodi and Travis Alexander, how they met, and their tumultuous relationship that ended with Travis being murdered inside his own home. In part two, we'll cover the dramatic and lengthy murder trial, including all the evidence against Jodi, key witness testimony, and important events in the years that followed her conviction. So Jodi was arrested, right? We played a little bit of, her interrogation. It was lengthy. There's a ton of audio out there. Jury selection was completed on December 20th, 2012. And opening arguments began on January 2nd, 2013. And we talked about it in the first episode, but this was a case that the media latched onto. It had a lot of salacious aspects.
Sure did.
To it, right? Sex, murder. People really wanted to know what happened in this murder of Travis Alexander and what role Jodi played. Prosecutor Juan Martinez listed the different stories Jodi told law enforcement before she settled on a self-defense claim. And we kind of detailed out some of those. Martinez also described the 3 fatal wounds Travis suffered: the gunshot wound to the head, the stab wound to the heart, and the cut across his throat. Travis had defensive wounds on his hands, indicating that he fought back as he was being attacked.
Those are some pretty severe injuries if you think about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then, to think about the person inflicting those 3 specifically. You're firing a gun, you are stabbing someone in their heart, and then you're slicing their throat. Visually, that is rough.
I mean, it sounds like an assassin to me.
Yeah. Or some kind of a damn video game.
Yeah.
The prosecution portrayed Travis as a devout Mormon and a good man. They described Jodi as a jealous woman who killed Travis when he tried to end their relationship. And I do think, it's interesting to kind of dissect how people are painted, right? In trials, Travis was this great guy, very religious. Jodi's the jealous woman. Now, you could say all of that is true, but nobody is all good.
No.
And nobody is all bad. Really, no matter how you try to portray them, people have their good points and they have their faults. And I think we'll see. I mean, Travis had some faults. It wasn't just like everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. And what some people perceive as faults, maybe others won't.
Yes. But I think by and large, he was a good guy, overall. But I think a lot of people, they try to make everything so black and white. And I think there's a lot of gray area when it comes to people.
Oh, for sure.
Defense attorney Jennifer Wilmot acknowledged that Jodi killed Travis, saying per the East Valley Tribune, Jodi Arias killed Travis Alexander. There's no question about it. The $1 million question is what would have forced her to do it? She said Jodi acted in self-defense after Travis allegedly lunged at her in a fit of rage. Wilmot told the jury that Jodi would have been killed if she did not defend herself. Okay, well, that's kind of the basis of a self-defense claim.
Yeah. Self-defense 101.
I had to do what I did, or I would have been the one who ended up dead.
Yeah. So I shot him in the head, stabbed him in his heart, and then slit his throat.
Doesn't sound right when you say it that way, does it?
No.
From a self-defense angle. The defense characterized Travis as violent and abusive. Wilmot alleged that Travis pressured Jodi into having sex with him. According to the defense, Travis presented himself as a devoted member of the LDS church, but in secret, he was obsessed with sex. Jodi was his dirty little secret. So, let's break that down a little bit. I think, obsessed is a very, very strong word.
Sure is.
But, let's be honest, most 20-year-old guys are a little obsessed with sex.
It's not out of the ordinary.
No, the hormones are raging, all of that stuff.
And you got to remember, too, they have been fairly active up to this point.
Sexually?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then...
But for me, that's where the pressuring comes in.
Right.
Pressuring to have sex, but then you're going to have to answer the question, why did she come back so many times?
Yeah. And why was she on the bed taking those provocative photos?
Travis rarely acknowledged Jodi in public and became increasingly sexually demanding and physically and verbally abusive. Now, you can talk about the sex part all you want. To me, the crux of the self-defense case would come down to, the verbally and really more so physically abusive part of the allegations. On January 3rd, Detective Esteban Flores, who investigated the crime scene, testified about his phone conversation with Jodi on June 10th, 2008. During their conversation, she mentioned that she'd heard there was a lot of blood at the crime scene. Jodi also asked what type of weapon was used, but Detective Flores was unable to discuss that with her. And we did kind of talk about this a little bit in episode 1. We found it strange, right? That she's going to call up to the police and start asking all of these questions. Yes, you find out that Travis has been killed. You're shocked. But is that one of the first things that would pop? Well, I wonder what type of weapon was used.
How much blood was there?
Yeah, those are strange. According to HuffPost, when asked about her relationship with Travis, Jodi told the detective, "We dated for like 5 months and we broke up and actually did not see each other for quite a bit. We tried to remain friends, more like buddies. We were intimate, but I would not say romantic as far as a relationship goes."
Oh, so friends with benefits.
I would say so. I have a lot of buddies. We're not doing some of the things that these two individuals were doing. You and I are buddies.
And I'm glad that's where it stops.
Jodi said they broke up because she suspected Travis was cheating on her and couldn't trust him. She made a point to say that Travis became upset real easily. And I think it's pretty easy to see that a big part of this trial on the part of the defense has to be to break down the character of Travis Alexander.
Well, that has to be one of their biggest goals.
Yeah, for a jury to believe that Jodi Arias was in fear for her life. Well, Travis Alexander has to be a bad guy. During the conversation, Jodi denied the allegation that she hacked into Travis's email, and she was dismissive when told that Travis's friends thought she hung around when she wasn't wanted. Jodi was asked who would want to hurt Travis. She said Travis was strong and she couldn't understand how someone could overpower him. So this is all taking place, right, in an earlier conversation with Detective Flores. During cross-examination, Detective Flores acknowledged that he knew Travis sent emails to Jodi, calling her a slut and a whore. Flores read a Facebook message from Travis to Jodi where he said, "I was nothing more than a dildo with a heartbeat for you."
Wow.
I don't think I've ever heard that saying before in my life.
No, that's a second thing I've learned from this episode. Mouth hug was the first.
Oh, mouth hug. Yeah. So again, some of this stuff doesn't make Travis look great.
No, but that's what they want.
Yes. But does it mean he was physically abusive? Does it mean he was a danger at any point to Jodi Arias? Now, you could say he was very insensitive with some of these things that he's saying.
Oh, absolutely.
Fingerprint examiner Heather Connor testified that a team of investigators found clothing and a broken digital camera inside the washing machine in Travis's house. The clothing and a towel appeared to have bleach stains. The jury viewed photos of the crime scene, including a photo of a bloody handprint on a wall. This handprint was the one that contained a mixture of Travis and Jodi's DNA. Dr. Kevin Horn from the Maricopa County Medical Examiner's Office testified that Travis was stabbed 27 times, shot with a .25 caliber gun, and nearly decapitated by a cut to the throat, which cut his voice box and arteries.
Very forceful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very serious slash. It sounds like pretty much ear to ear, cutting both arteries and his voice box.
Sounds like somebody very angry.
He testified that it was highly unlikely Travis could have so many defensive wounds if he was shot in the head first. He had multiple self-defense wounds to his palms and fingers. And that does make sense, right? You get shot in your head, it's going to be tough to put up much of a fight.
If any,
because a lot of times you're going to be dead right away. But even if you're not, more than likely you're going to be incapacitated to some degree. But if somebody's coming after you and they're stabbing you, they're slashing you, well, you're going to throw your hands up. You're going to defend yourself.
right?
It was impossible to determine if Travis was dead before he was shot because of decomposition. His body was starting to mummify by the time he was found. His cause of death was excessive blood loss. So, I mean, just another kind of macabre visual imagery.
Yeah. Very disturbing.
To think that, his body was starting to mummify.
In my head, I'm trying to figure out, if you shot...
Oh,
yeah. If she shot him first, why was there a need to stab and slice instead of just shoot another round?
Yeah. Now, again, we're talking about a 25 caliber.
Right.
Not the most powerful, but I think what this medical examiner is theorizing is that the stabs and the cuts and all that came first, and then the shot came, at the end. Firearms examiner Elizabeth Northcutt testified that she was not able to match the 25 caliber cartridge casing at the crime scene to the bullet removed from Travis's cheek because the murder weapon was not recovered. Ryan Burns, whom Jodi visited in Utah the day after Travis was killed, testified on January 9th. As we talked about in part 1, Jodi arrived a day later than expected. On June 5th, she told Ryan she got lost and stopped to rest. He noticed that Jodi dyed her hair and that she also had cuts on her hands as well as bandages on some of her fingers. Jodi told him she cut her finger while working at a Margaritaville restaurant.
That sounds believable.
Yeah. I think she even said cut it on a glass or something like that. But here's the thing that, I don't know that everybody thinks about. If you're up close and personal with a knife, pretty easy to cut your own hands.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot for some people. I've sliced myself a few times.
Doing some up close and personal knife work?
Yes.
Okay. But that is one thing that I like about the K-bar. The K-bar does have a pretty good sized guard on it.
It does.
But not all knives have that big of a guard. Your hand can slip down and just, you could nick your other hand, especially if somebody's fighting you.
Oh, of course.
The prosecution asked Ryan about Jodi's strength. Per HuffPost, he testified she was fit and had abs and said she's a lot stronger than she looks. And, this is a kind of a fascinating part of it, right? Because you have this woman, Jodi Arias, who by looking at her, she's not too big. You could see how maybe a jury would have a thought in their mind. How could this thin little woman do all of this to this big guy, Travis Alexander? So it's important, to get some people up there and say, she was a lot stronger than she looked or stronger than you might think.
And there are people like that.
Well, size doesn't always necessarily equate to strength. You can have big guys who are not that strong. You can have, guys who weigh 150 pounds that are just wiry, unbelievably strong.
There really is no rhyme or reason behind it.
And then you've got farm strong.
Oh, man.
Which is just a whole different category all to itself.
Oh, yeah. Watch out for those individuals.
Detective Esteban Flores was called back to the stand to discuss a recorded phone interview from June 25th, 2008. Jodi spoke about her trip to Utah on June 5th. She said she slept in her car. Detective Flores told her that this was dangerous and she needed protection, but Jodi said that she was afraid of guns.
Well, she wasn't that afraid of guns.
It didn't appear, right, as though she was. But I think they are making a big deal about this trip to Utah, right? You're a whole day late, which conveniently kind of includes the window where this murder would have taken place.
Right.
And so you have this, what to me sounds like a very strange scenario that, number one, you got lost. People do get lost. I get that. But then you're just going to sleep in your car, out in the middle of nowhere? I don't know.
But, she admitted that she killed him. She said, yep, I did it, self-defense. But they have to kind of walk you down this path to show that you didn't do it in self-defense, that this was premeditated.
Well, and also to expose all the lies that came before the self-defense claim. Because, you want to show to the jury that this is not a person you can really trust.
Yeah.
Because she's already given 2, 3, 4, 5 different version of events.
Yeah, why didn't she come out of the gate saying it was self-defense?
On January 10, 2013, Detective Nathaniel Mendez from Siskiyou County, California, testified that there is no margarita restaurant in Wairika. This suggested that Jodi lied to Ryan Burns when she explained how she cut her hand.
Well, one of the most important things to learn when you do an alibi is make sure that the place actually exists.
That you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or you're saying you got cut
Yeah.
at. Yeah. If you're going to include it, you better make sure it exists.
Yeah.
Mendez testified that he found receipts in Jodi's bedroom that showed she rented a car in Redding on June 2nd, 2008, and returned it 6 days later. She put over 2,800 miles on the car.
That's a lot of driving.
Well, and it's obvious why they're doing that. They want to prove that these miles would put her in Arizona. Even though, to your point, she's admitting to the murder and to the fact that she was there now.
But you're getting inside of her head, right?
Yes.
You can see how deceitful she's being.
After a forensic scientist testified about blood spatter at the scene, Detective Esteban Flores returned to the stand once again and testified about a conversation he had with Jodi, where she acknowledged she had Travis's ATM pin and the security code for his garage. She was able to enter his home anytime she wanted. During cross-examination, Flores acknowledged that his previous testimony at an August 2009 hearing was incorrect. He said that Travis was shot before he was stabbed. Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. On January 16, 2013, the jury watched Jodi's interrogation video where she denied killing Travis. As quoted by the East Valley Tribune, Jodi said, "I don't think I could stab him. I think I would have to shoot him until he was dead if that were my intentions. But I would have to wear gloves. If I had it in me to kill him, the least I could have done was make it as humane as possible." That's the strangest logic that I've ever heard. Why would you even say that? It's going back to that. I didn't do it, but if I was going to do it, I would have done it this way.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. You just stick with I didn't do it.
No reason to open it up any more than that.
No, it seems way out of left field to me. On January 29th, Nancy Grace reported that Jodi approached prosecutors 2 years before the trial, offering to plead guilty to second-degree murder. The state rejected her offer.
Well, clearly they felt they had a strong case.
Yeah, I think they felt pretty good about their case. Jodi's ex-boyfriend, Daryl Brewer, testified that Jodi borrowed 2 5-gallon gas cans from him the day before she drove to Arizona. Jodi called him in May 2008, asking to borrow the cans, but she wouldn't explain why. She called 2 more times and showed up at his house in June of that year. She said she was going to visit friends in California and Arizona. Jodi never returned the gas cans.
Strange request. And I think if someone would ask me today if they can borrow a couple of gas cans, I'd be like, no. Whatever you're getting ready to do.
I don't want to be a part of it.
Exactly.
Now, you can look at this as kind of mundane testimony, but again, what does it really do? It leads you into the premeditation aspect of this crime.
I mean, you're just really driving it home.
Right. If you're just planning to go see him, why does it need to be such a secret? Why do you need the gas cans? Why can't you leave a paper trail?
Right.
You go see him and then you go to Utah. The only reason you do it is because at the end of the day, you don't want anyone to know that you've even been to Travis's house.
You're avoiding the paper trail, avoiding the cameras, all that.
The prosecution presented receipts from Jodi's trip to Mesa, Arizona. The night before the trip, she purchased 10 gallons of gas at one gas station and then another 10 gallons at a different gas station. Jodi brought the gas cans to fill up her car on the way to Arizona, which they said showed premeditation. And just that fact alone, why would you drive to 2 different gas stations? There's no reason to.
No, just fill them up. Pay cash.
But you don't want someone to know that you got 20 gallons.
No.
You want them to think you only got 10, so you can see all the things she was thinking about ahead of this trip to Arizona. Jodi Arias began her testimony on February 4th, 2013. She was on the stand, Gibbs, for 18 days.
That's a long time.
That is. I don't know how many people testify, for that many days. Jodi claimed that Travis was physically and emotionally abusive and that he was violent on the day he died. She admitted to killing Travis during her first day of testimony. According to ABC, defense attorney Kirk Nurmi asked, "Did you kill Travis Alexander?" Jodi said yes. She explained the simple answer is that he attacked me and I defended myself. Jodi testified that she initially lied about being at the crime scene because she planned to end her life. She said, per Fox News, "At the time, I had plans to commit suicide. So I was extremely confident that no jury would convict me because I didn't expect any of you to be here. I planned to be dead."
I don't know if that really makes sense to me.
Well, I'm assuming she's saying that she planned to end her life after the initial talk with police. Therefore, she could say anything she wanted. It wasn't going to make any difference. It was never going to come back to bite her. But obviously, we know she didn't. Jodi told the court her parents abused her as a child. She claimed they beat her with belts and wooden spoons and later shoved her into furniture and slapped her in the face for offenses such as sneaking out. She also testified about being involved in an abusive relationship. When she was a teenager, her boyfriend tried to end his life. After she broke up with him, they got back together and he threatened to strangle her and kill her family.
Well, if that's all true, it's very terrible.
It is terrible. We don't know the truthfulness of all of it, but true or not, you can see what she's trying to do.
Sure, she's trying to set it up so the jury can see why she reacted the way she did with Travis.
She had a history of being abused, and therefore, when he became violent, she acted. During her second day of testimony, Jodi said that Travis had a Bill Clinton view of sex. I don't even know what that means. That he liked interns, or?
I think it depends on how you define the word view.
Well, Bill Clinton is kind of viewed as having been a little promiscuous. Oh. So I think that's what she's getting at.
Yes.
She explained that Travis got around the church's teachings on chastity by engaging in oral and anal sex, which were not technically against the rules. We're skirting a very fine line here, I think.
Yeah, that's, to the rule maker. I think maybe you missed a big thing here when you made that initial ruling.
It seems to go back to the theory of if you're not cheating, you're not really trying.
Yeah.
If you're not breaking the rules, you're not really trying to win. And I think this is where the Bill Clinton comparison comes in, because per ABC, she told the court, it seemed like Travis kind of had a Bill Clinton version of sex, where oral and anal sex were also sex to me, but not for him. Back to your kind of joke, it depends on your definition of the word sex.
Yeah. Now the whole mouth hug thing's coming around.
Yes, I think it's making a little bit more sense. Jodi testified that hours after she was baptized, Travis forced her to have anal sex. She said, "It's not something I expected to happen, and I can't say I wanted it to, but I didn't stop him." She believed Travis was using her for sex and had no interest in an emotional connection, which made her feel like a prostitute. And some of this may be true, some of it not, right? Travis can't defend himself.
No, he's not here to give his side of the story.
But I think the one thing that you would have to explain if you're Jodi Arias is, if all this is true, why did you keep going back to Travis's house essentially for sex after the relationship ended?
I mean, even showing up unannounced. You had the opportunity not to go, but you chose to go.
Right. I think you're going to have to explain that. On February 11th, Jodi testified that Travis once beat her, pushed her to the ground, kicked her in the ribs, and broke her finger. During an argument, she did not seek treatment because she didn't want the police to get involved. Jodi also claimed that in January 2008, she walked in on Travis masturbating to photos of young boys. He allegedly confessed to being attracted to children. He convinced her to have sex with him to cure him of his deviant urges. So, I mean, obviously she's really kind of laying the wood to Travis Alexander here.
Yeah, I mean, she's trying to put him in a negative light as far as his character. We don't know if what she's saying is even true.
No, that's up to the jury, because there's only two people who could possibly know if these things are true, and that's Jodi, who's telling all of these things. The other is Travis, who's dead.
And I just think if a woman walked in on a man doing that, I would think majority of the women would be like, I'm out.
That's a deal. Okay. That's an absolute deal breaker.
Yeah. You need to get some help, but that was true.
Jodi testified that Travis once sent her a package that contained a pair of children's underwear, which she said she threw away. One of the most shocking moments of the trial occurred on February 12, 2013, when a recorded phone sex conversation between Jodi and Travis was played in court. During the recording, they discussed zip tying Jodi to a tree, pornography, and rape.
So that sounds like they were into role play.
Well, I think if Jodi's giving her opinion, Travis is into all of this stuff, right? Because this was a part of the defense's effort to portray Travis as a sexual deviant. Now, there are a lot of things in the realm of sex that, a lot of people would say, well, I'm not into that. I don't want any part of that. But what have you and I always talked about, which is, if you're not hurting anyone else and you're not breaking any laws, what two people decide to do together, that's up to them.
Yeah, for sure. Behind closed doors, as long as they both agree to it, consent.
And they're not hurting anyone. Yeah. It's not illegal, anything like that. According to ABC, Travis said during the conversation, You're pretty. You're so attractive. I've never seen you look bad in my life. There are times when you've looked miserable and I've still raped you.
Kind of strange thing to say.
Yeah, it is. There's no way around it. After Jodi orgasmed, Travis told her that she sounded like a little girl, which he thought was hot.
That is strange.
It is. There's no way around it.
But back up just a little bit. Clearly, Jodi enjoyed the conversation.
Why? Because she orgasmed?
Yeah.
Okay. But you take this recorded conversation, and it's real. It happened, right? Because there's a recording of it. What does it mean? Is it icky? Yeah. I mean, there are some things in here that don't sound great. But does it mean that Travis was a pedophile? I would say no. It's not evidence. It's not proof.
No.
On February 13th, Jodi testified that Travis became increasingly sexually aggressive and violent in the weeks leading up to his death. She read text messages where Travis called her a sex slave and described his aggressive sexual fantasies. Now, the key word there might be fantasy. A lot of people have some pretty far out fantasies that maybe they would never act on.
Yeah, I know. You've mentioned to me the pudding thing, and I just,
You shut that down real quick.
Yeah. I don't want to really hear the details of that, but whatever. Do your thing.
One message from Travis said per ABC, "You are the ultimate slut in bed. When it's done, the intensity will make your body feel like you have been raped. You'll rejoice in being a whore. That sole purpose in life is to be mine, to have animalistic sex with me and to please me in any way I desire."
It's just really strange on how he brings the word rape into.
Yeah, he does use that word quite a bit. Like it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely, for me, I feel it's uncomfortable.
Yes. The way he's using that word is very strange. Jodi claimed that Travis forced her to end friendships with male and female friends in 2007. He called her a whore when she was friendly with other men and lost his temper over the phone and in person. She distanced herself because she was tired of his aggressive, authoritative behavior. She moved away and wrote an email telling him she was not comfortable with their secret relationship and wanted to cool it. On the day she moved back to California, Travis gave her a rude gesture with both hands. I'm assuming that means he gave her the bird.
I'm guessing.
In May 2008, Jodi wrote an email to Travis saying she was tired of keeping their relationship a secret. She loved him and would always be his friend, but she was going to be proactive and remove herself from the list of people you have to worry about. Travis responded with angry messages and texts. On February 20th, Jodi described what happened on June 4th, 2008. She said she accidentally dropped Travis's new camera while taking photos of him in the bathroom, which caused him to lose his temper. According to her, Travis came at her like a linebacker and slammed her to the floor. She ran to his closet, but he came after her. She grabbed a gun from the closet shelf and ran. Travis went after her again. Jodi testified, "He was angry at me and he wasn't going to stop. It was like mortal terror." She said the gun went off during their fight. Jodi said, "I pointed it at him with both of my hands. I thought that would stop him, but he just kept running. He got like a linebacker. He got low and grabbed my waist. And as he was lunging at me, the gun went off. I didn't mean to shoot. I didn't even think I was holding the trigger." She admitted she cleaned the crime scene, dumped the gun, and tried to establish an alibi. She said she couldn't imagine calling 911 because she was scared. Jodi continued, "I have no memory of stabbing him. I remember dropping the knife and it clinked on the tile. And I just remember screaming. I don't remember anything after that." So, I mean, I think you can visualize the scene, right? That Jodi is trying to paint. He comes at me like a linebacker.
Yeah.
Even though I'm holding the gun pointed at him. But she says the gun, went off as he was lunging at me. She didn't mean for it to. She didn't even know she pulled the trigger.
Well, clearly he wasn't threatened by her having the gun, if that's how it actually happened, because he still continued to move towards her.
Yes.
And she's saying, "Look, I didn't even know I pulled the trigger. So I had no intentions to use the gun."
But then she says, she did all this stuff after the fact and didn't call 911 or anything like that because she was scared. So again, you just have to put yourself in the mind of a juror. How believable is some of this stuff, not just on its own, but you have to factor in all of the other things, right? That we know, the things that come out during the trial. Before trial, Jodi told the police that Travis was conscious after she shot him and crawled around and was stabbed, according to the East Valley Tribune. And it's probably where the detective, who testified earlier on, made the statement that he was shot first. I would say it was probably based on something that Jodi said to him.
Yeah.
At trial, she said she recalled putting a knife in the dishwasher and disposing of the gun in the desert during the drive to Utah.
Does that make any sense? I mean, if you're going to dispose of weapons, why not just take them both and toss them in the desert? Why put a knife in a dishwasher?
Well, the only thing I could think of is you don't want to have a knife that's missing. That's the only thing.
Make sure the whole complete set's there.
Yes, because if not, somebody's going to think that was the murder weapon. Sources noted that none of Jodi's claims that she was physically abused, that Travis owned a gun, or that Travis was attracted to children were supported by witnesses or evidence presented at trial. And I think that's an important statement to make. Right? You can say whatever you want if you're Jodi, because the person who could refute all of that stuff is the person you shot, stabbed to death. They're not there.
No.
But when there's no corroboration whatsoever of any of it by other means, what's the jury left with? Your word. And that's it. And I don't think that's really where you want to be if you're Jodi Arias. Because as the jury, how good is your word? If your whole defense is hinging on that, you got to be a little worried, I think.
Sure you do.
In her testimony, Jodi said she lied because she was ashamed of killing Travis and she didn't want details of their sex life to be revealed. Jodi agreed that she called the police and Travis's friends after his body was found to figure out what the police knew. Jodi read excerpts from her journal after prosecutor Juan Martinez pointed out that she never wrote about being abused by Travis or the incident where she allegedly saw Travis masturbating to pictures of young boys. According to ABC, Jodi wrote in her journal at one point, "I just wish I could die. I wish that suicide was a way out, but it is no escape. I wouldn't feel any more pain." Under questioning by her attorney, Jodi explained why she did not write about the incident involving the photo, saying, per the East Valley Tribune, "That's exactly the opposite of things I would want to note. I wouldn't want to remember that. It was very shocking." And I guess for me, that comes down to, is she a person that wrote about everything in her journal, detailed, almost every aspect of her life?
And if she did, why would she leave that part out? Again, I just think if that was true, majority of women would not continue to see him.
Have any type of relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. She read from an entry she claimed she wrote days after seeing this. It read, "It still remains that I cannot marry him. I cannot quite put my finger on it, but something is just off with that boy. Something is just off." Well, what about all these very, very specific things
Yeah.
that you're saying?
That's what you put your finger on.
Jodi said this was her indirect way of referring to his issues. She also alleged that she didn't document negative events in their relationship because Travis read her journal and got angry. On March 14, 2013, defense expert Richard Samuels testified that Jodi suffered from PTSD and acute memory loss, which is a common occurrence after highly stressful events. Samuels said that individuals in traumatic settings have foggy memories because they're focused on survival. When a person is in a stressful situation, their body prepares them to fend off harm, and the body releases hormones that block the brain's ability to retain memories. And I can completely understand that. I can understand him testifying to that. Because no matter how this went down, whether it was flat out murder or a self-defense act, it would still be a highly stressful event either way. He's also talking about other types of stressful events. On March 26th, prosecutor Juan Martinez informed the jury that Jodi had a history of assaulting her mother, which contradicted her earlier testimony about her allegedly abusive childhood. So he's trying to flip it and say, no, she wasn't abused. She was the abuser. During his testimony, Richard Samuels confirmed that Jodi hit her mother during arguments. And that's a defense witness.
This is not how you want things to go.
No, but the guy's being honest, right? In Arizona, jurors have the right to submit written questions to witnesses. Jurors asked Samuels, how can we be certain that your assessment of Miss Arias is not based on her lie? Samuels replied that he believed Jodi met the criteria for a PTSD diagnosis. He was asked if he was certain Jodi was telling the truth about the day of the murder. Samuels said he was not 100% certain. But how could he be?
No, how could anybody be?
Yeah, I mean, he's giving or making a diagnosis on the information that he has available. Now, undoubtedly, a lot of that information is coming from Jodi. On March 27th, domestic violence expert Alice Laviolette testified for the defense. She spoke in generalities and did not say whether she met with Jodi. She said that most victims don't tell anyone about the abuse because they are ashamed. Battered women often stay with their partners out of hope and fear.
And we know that. We've heard about this.
That's absolutely true. The defense introduced statements showing that Travis's friends tried to warn Jodi that he was an abusive womanizer, according to the Arizona Republic. Defense attorney Jennifer Wilmot asked Alice Laviolette to read emails between Travis and his friends, Chris and Sky Hughes. The emails were not shown to the jury, and Laviolette was only allowed to characterize the content of the email. One email contained the subject, "You crossed the line." In it, Travis complained that the Hugheses discouraged Jodi from pursuing him because he was abusive to women. He called Jodi a skank and said he only saw her in secret. Okay, now this is interesting testimony.
It is.
Because it does allude to the fact that even his own friends potentially were saying he was an abusive womanizer.
That aids her defense.
You know, even the smallest step forward can make a big difference in your financial future. When you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future with no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Making progress has never been easier. I think we've all been in that position where we've had an overdraft. Well, with Chime, you can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. That's amazing. And they have over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make progress towards a better financial future with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/TCAT. That's chime.com/TCATT. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. MyPay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. $2 fee applies to get funds instantly. Crime checking account required. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. True Crime All the Time is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, folks, therapy can feel like a big investment, but let's think about the state of your mind. It's just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, which adds up really fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. And you get quality care at a price that makes sense and can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach. I've used the BetterHelp service for years. And I love the fact that, I can connect with a therapist in a comfortable spot in my home on my laptop. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/TCAT today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TCATT. According to the Arizona Republic, the jury did not hear about a 2011 defense filing that detailed the contents of the emails. In one email, Chris Hughes said he believed Jodi would be Travis's next victim and that he was playing her. Okay, now you can take that a bunch of different ways. Next victim, meaning he's using this woman just for sex and then he's going to, cast her aside. Or you can take it to mean that she's truly going to be a victim in the sense of being abused and, things like that. According to Travis, allegedly replied with, "I am a bit of a sociopath." At this point in the trial, the defense accused the prosecutor of misconduct. Jurors were asked if they saw Juan Martinez signing autographs and posing outside the courthouse. I think that just kind of really goes to the heart of what a media circus this was.
And this was a big circus.
In these major trials, the attorneys kind of become celebrities to the point where, this guy, I guess, was signing autographs and things like that. Now, is that prosecutorial misconduct? I have no idea.
But it's strange.
Yeah, I think for a prosecutor to be signing autographs in the middle of a trial.
Yeah, during the trial. I mean, we've seen years later.
Oh, famous attorneys or attorneys connected with famous cases. Sure.
Yeah.
On April 2nd, 2013, a juror was dismissed for making biased statements. 2 more jurors were later released during the trial. During cross-examination, Alice Laviolette said Jodi and Travis had a volatile relationship. He dated multiple women, used graphic language during sexual encounters, and called Jodi derogatory names. I don't think any of that is untrue.
Yeah, based on everything we've learned to this point. Yeah.
I think their relationship was very volatile. I do think Travis was dating a number of women, and it was proven in text messages that he called her derogatory names. Juan Martinez asked Laviolette how she knew Jodi wasn't lying. She said she found Jodi to be credible. In April, the prosecution called on expert witness Janine DeMarte, who testified that Jodi has borderline personality disorder. The defense argued that Jodi underwent several tests that indicated she was a battered woman with PTSD. DeMarte testified about her interpretation of those tests. She did not believe Jodi was abused or was suffering from PTSD. Instead, the test she administered indicated Jodi had borderline personality disorder. So again, this is not uncommon, right? To have experts on each side saying different things.
Yeah, it's pretty normal for them to have conflicting testimony.
She said she found several traits of borderline personality disorder in her evaluation, including efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, unstable and intense relationships, identity disturbance, suicidal behavior, affective instability, chronic feelings of emptiness, and inappropriate, intense anger. On May 1st, 2013, the defense called a final expert witness, psychologist Robert Geffner, who testified that Jodi could be suffering from both PTSD and borderline personality disorder. Jodi's test results pointed towards anxiety stemming from trauma. So that's pretty interesting because this final expert is kind of combating the prosecution's expert by saying, well, she could have both, right? The prior defense experts could be correct, but this lady could also be correct. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right. Which again helps out Jodi's defense case.
Closing arguments started on May 2nd, 2013. The prosecution portrayed Jodi as a manipulative liar who stalked Travis before killing him and that she planned out the attack. The defense asked the jury to be impartial, even if they didn't like Jodi. And I think that's something that you do hear from the defense quite a lot, right? You might not like this person. You might not like the things that they've said. You might not like the way that they, portray themselves. But you have to separate that out from the evidence. That comes up quite a bit. The case went to the jury on May 3rd, 2013. Jurors were allowed to consider verdicts of second-degree murder and manslaughter, in addition to first-degree murder. So there's quite a number of options there. But on May 8th, 2013, the jury found Jodi guilty of first-degree murder.
Clearly, they saw past all the allegations made by the defense team.
Well, I think there's no doubt that they viewed Jodi's actions as premeditation, right? Not reacting in the moment to protect herself. That in advance, through all the things she did, it showed that she went there to kill Travis Alexander. During the upcoming penalty phase, the prosecution planned to argue that the murder was committed in an especially cruel, heinous, and depraved manner, which could justify capital punishment. Minutes after she was convicted, Jodi spoke to Fox affiliate KSAZ, saying, "Longevity runs in my family, and I don't want to spend the rest of my natural life in one place. I believe death is the ultimate freedom, and I'd rather have my freedom as soon as I can get it."
So she's saying, I'd rather be dead.
Yeah, and we've heard that from a lot of people convicted of murder very early on. Now, many of those individuals change their mind as the years roll on. They're like, I might have been a little hasty in saying, just go ahead and kill me as soon as possible. I think I'd just rather spend, the rest of my life here in jail alive.
Yeah, crocheting my blanket.
On May 15, 2013, the jury found Jodi eligible for the death penalty. However, this was not an official decision. This completed the aggravation phase of the trial. Jurors now had to go through the penalty phase. Jodi's defense argued that her mental illness was not an excuse for what she did, but it was also a reason for mercy. And to me, the different phases of the trial are pretty fascinating. In the first phase, you're trying to get your client either off completely from the charges or at the very least get, the lesser of all convictions. But then once the conviction occurs, you're switching to, okay, how do I mitigate this person's sentence? And if the death penalty is on the table, you're definitely trying to get out from under that.
Absolutely.
On May 21st, Jodi spoke to the jury and pleaded for her life. She said she lacked perspective when she made statements about the death penalty immediately after her conviction.
As we just talked about.
Well, I mean, you're in the heat of the moment. You're upset, obviously. I would assume if you've just been convicted of first-degree murder, anybody would be, angry, scared. All these emotions would be running through you.
Yeah.
You're liable to say anything.
I was just joking about me wanting to be dead. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't take long. It didn't take 5-10 years for her to change her opinion. USA Today reported that Jodi told the jury, "I cannot in good conscience ask you to sentence me to death because of them." She pointed at her family and continued, "I think death is tantamount to suicide. Either way, I will spend the rest of my life in prison. It will either be shortened or not. If it's shortened, the people who will be hurt is my family. I am asking, please, don't do that to them." Jodi told the jury she planned to sell clothing and donate all proceeds to victims of domestic abuse. She added, "I loved Travis and I looked up to him. At one point, he was the world to me. This is the worst mistake of my life. It's the worst thing I've ever done. To this day, I can hardly believe that I was capable of such violence, but I know that I was. And for that, I'm going to be sorry for the rest of my life, probably longer." I'm not sure how that's possible, but meaning in heaven, she's going to be sorry. That must be what she's talking about.
Yeah, I think she thinks it's going to follow her to the next,
wherever she goes. But here's my question. Going back to this, it doesn't hurt me to be put to death. It hurts my family. I'm going to sell this clothing and donate it to, domestic abuse victims. Is this Jodi using her skills, which we know she had, to further manipulate people?
Possible.
You never know, right? With what these individuals say, it's kind of hard to give her the benefit of the doubt. I think it's hard for me to give a lot of these killers the benefit of the doubt because of what we know they've done. So after the fact, is it more likely that they're going to say anything and everything, or whatever they believe is going to help them out the most? And I think more often than not, that's probably true.
They're trying to save their life.
On May 23rd, 2013, the judge announced a mistrial in the penalty phase. Under Arizona law, a new jury would be required to hear the penalty phase again. In an interview on May 24th, jury foreman William Zervakos said it was unfair for them to decide between life and death. He said the hardest part of the trial was hearing from Travis's family. Jurors struggled in the deliberation room because of their personal beliefs, Jodi's young age, and her lack of criminal record. Man, I can tell you, I think it would be hard for many people. They would struggle with this life and death decision. I mean, you are literally voting to put someone to death.
Yeah, and I think each year it gets harder as we learn more and more things about wrongful convictions.
Oh, well, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That does make it tougher as well. On May 29, 2013, the Arizona Supreme Court declined to hear an appeal on whether the judge improperly allowed prosecutors to seek the death penalty. The appeal was filed in the middle of Jodi's trial. Over a year later, in October 2014, the new jury was seated and sworn in for the retrial of the penalty phase. And I don't know how often this happens. I don't think you and I have talked about it much. I don't remember it. The proceedings started on October 21st, 2014. Because of the circus-like atmosphere of the first trial, cameras were not allowed in the courtroom. Jodi did not take the stand during the retrial.
That's probably a really smart thing.
Yeah, I could see where it could be smart, but it does limit her ability somewhat to make her pleased to the jury. But it also keeps her from being asked certain questions that she probably doesn't want to answer.
Right.
So I think that probably overrides the other. The defense grilled Detective Esteban Flores, who admitted that he changed his story on how exactly Travis died. At court hearings in 2009, he testified that Travis was shot, stabbed, and then his throat was slit. At the 2013 trial, the prosecution said Travis was stabbed, had his throat slit, and then was shot. Again, I could see why you would try to make a big deal out of that. Does that change the ultimate outcome for Jodi Arias? And I would say, no, I don't see how it would.
Yeah, I think it's still the same case.
Now, maybe they're trying to chip away at the credibility of the detective. Forensic examiner Kevin Horn maintained that Travis was shot after he was stabbed. The order of events was important, though, for this reason. And it's because Jodi was accused of committing an excessively cruel crime.
But regardless of the order, aren't they both excessively cruel? If you're shot, stabbed, and throat slit, or if you're stabbed, throat slit, and then you're shot, is there a difference?
Well, I think the argument that was made was that if Travis was shot first and unable to fight back, the stab wounds and throat cutting could meet the criteria. However, if he was stabbed first, the additional stab wounds could have been a logical result of the struggle. This is all according to the Arizona Republic. Right. So, I mean, I get your way of thinking, which is it's all extremely cruel or excessively cruel. But I also understand this way of thinking. If he's shot first, then it's almost like, she's mutilating him just for the sake of it, as opposed to, okay, I stabbed him. That didn't kill him. I slit his throat. Apparently that didn't kill him. So I ended up shooting him. Is it still unbelievably cruel? Yes. Is it excessively cruel? I guess that's the definition or the criteria.
I just think you can say the stabbing itself was cruel 27 times.
No, it is cruel. But under the law, is it excessively cruel? And it sounds like this criteria was very specific.
Yeah.
Almost as if it didn't need to happen in order for the person to die. That's maybe I'm simplifying it too much,
No,
but
I agree.
That's kind of how I took it.
I'm just back to the 27 stab wounds. Excessive.
Yeah, it seems like Prosecutor Juan Martinez seated a California police officer who handled the case involving the burglary of Jodi's grandparents' home. In late May 2008, a .25 caliber gun was stolen from them. The gun has never been found, and Jodi was not charged with that burglary. She has said that she did not take her grandparents' gun.
Is that even relevant?
I mean, I don't know that it is. She's already been convicted, right?
Yeah.
We're in the penalty phase, so I'm not really sure. But I'm also not sure why she wouldn't cop to that. And maybe she just didn't want to because of her family. She didn't want it known that she killed Travis Alexander with her grandparents' gun.
Yeah, that wouldn't be any good.
The second jury received the case on February 25th. On March 3rd, 2015, the judge ordered the jury to continue deliberating after they had reached an impasse. On March 5th, the second mistrial was declared after the jury could not reach a unanimous decision on the death penalty. Only one juror refused to sentence Jodi to death.
So one holdout.
Yeah, that's all it took. But what that meant was that it was up to the judge to sentence Jodi, and the death penalty was off the table. The judge had the option to sentence her to life without parole or allow her to be eligible for parole after 25 years.
Well, either way, this is a win for Jodi.
Yeah, it means the death penalty is gone. Again, I go back to, as a juror, that cannot be an easy decision. You could see how there would be one person, if not more, that just made the decision that they just couldn't do it. They couldn't recommend putting someone to death. According to the Washington Post, the one holdout was juror 17. The juror said she felt like she was judged for her decision. Her name, address, and phone number were leaked, and people threatened her and her family. She said that other jurors accused her of having an agenda, and she felt like she was being harassed during deliberations. Fellow jurors said the woman had prior knowledge about the case. Another issue was that Juan Martinez prosecuted her ex-husband over a decade earlier. Now, however this thing played out, whether she had an agenda or not, it's pretty rough to have your, address, name, phone number leaked. Although, how hard is it really to get somebody's information?
A lot easier today, but yeah, it really should be confidential.
And then when you're thinking about, getting death threats, and not just you, but your family for this decision, that's pretty rough. On April 13th, 2015, Jodi Arias was sentenced to life without parole by Judge Sherry Stevens. Travis's sister, Tanisha Sorensen, told the judge that the family had been harassed by Jodi's supporters, and people sent them graphic photos of Travis's body.
That's really jacked up.
What is wrong with people?
Yeah.
Man, I just don't get it. I get, people get invested in a trial, a high profile trial. And if it doesn't come out the way that they think it should have, you believe in Jodi's innocence, you're going to make the decision to send graphic photos of the victim's body to his family?
Yeah, we're showed him. Let me do this. Makes zero sense.
This is not the same level, but it's It's almost, there was a guy who was an Alabama football fan.
Yeah.
And Auburn, their big rival, beat them one year. And so he poisoned this tree, this very famous tree at Auburn. And he killed this tree, which was like, I guess, hundreds of years old or whatever. He ended up going to jail. But it was over a football game.
Which is so stupid. I don't know what's wrong with people.
No, I don't either. Jodi spoke in her own defense during her final sentencing hearing. Her statements were published by ABC. She started off by disputing some of the statements made by one of Travis's sisters. She then said, "It's my firm belief that death would bring me untold peace and freedom. That's my personal belief. If I die today, I would be free and I would be at peace. For years, that's exactly what I wanted. But I have to fight for my life, just like I did on June 4th, 2008, because I realize how selfish it would be for me to escape accountability for this mess that I created." She continued speaking about how she killed Travis in self-defense, saying, "I do remember the moment that the knife went into Travis's throat and he was conscious. He was still trying to attack me. It was I who was trying to get away, not Travis. And I finally did. I never wanted it to be that way, Judge. The gunshot did not come last. It came first, and that was when Travis lunged at me, just as I testified to, and just as the state's own detective testified 2 years ago before he and prosecutor Juan Martez got together and decided to change their story for trial." She said she didn't want to speak negatively about Travis, but she had to in order to defend herself. Jodi apologized for causing Travis's family pain and said she wished she could undo what happened. "To this day, I cannot believe I was capable of doing something that terrible. I'm truly disgusted and I'm repulsed with myself. I'm horrified with what I did. And I wish there was some way I could take it back." Okay, there's a lot there. And I want to break some of it down because I'm struggling with what appears to be some contradictions, right? She, in the statement, is sticking with the self-defense story. He came at me. The gun went off. I stabbed him in the throat. He's still coming after me. Now, obviously, the prosecution and law enforcement believed it went down much, much differently. But then she keeps saying that she was horrified about what she did. Now, maybe you would be horrified if you took someone's life regardless of the circumstances.
Right.
But to me, I guess I took it as a little bit of a contradiction because if you're saying you had no choice,
why would you feel bad? You're protecting yourself.
Well, I could see where you'd feel bad. I don't know. Maybe it's not a contradiction, but for some reason in my mind, it seemed like it was.
I think there would have been a better way to word it.
Maybe that's what it is.
Her saying that she was disgusted with herself and she was repulsed and all that kind of stuff.
She didn't believe she was capable of doing something that terrible.
Yeah.
Well, obviously it was terrible what happened, but if in your mind you believe that you were really protecting yourself, would you have all of these emotions? I mean, you're going to have some emotions because you took someone's life.
Right.
Regardless of the circumstances. But I don't know. I thought it was a strange way to word some of the things the way she did.
Yeah.
On June 22nd, 2015, Jodi was ordered to pay more than $32,000 in restitution to Travis's siblings. And we see this restitution thing come up quite a bit. I always wonder, because I never actually saw it anywhere, how many of these individuals actually get or see any of that money?
Probably few to none.
Right. Because most people will spend their last dime to try to save their lives.
Yeah. And once they're in prison, they're not making a lot of money. They're probably making some money if they want, but not a lot.
And maybe that money is garnished for however long. But yeah, you're right. You don't get paid much of a wage if you have a job in prison. 7 years after Travis was murdered, the court case had finally ended. But Jodi has continued making headlines over the years. In May 2018, Jodi's former cellmate, Tracy Brown, spoke to Inside Edition about their time living together. She showed off tattoos given to her by Jodi and said that Jodi made money in prison by doing tattoos and selling artwork. Jodi allegedly flirted with the COs to keep her contraband equipment.
Well, it sounds like she's working the people in charge.
But it also sounds to me like what I believe her to be, a very manipulative person who would do what she has to do in order to get what she wants. Tracy called Jodi a sociopath and said that Jodi confessed to killing Travis during a quiet moment in their cell. But Jodi said Travis was not her target.
What does that mean?
According to Tracy, Jodi said she went there hoping to find this other woman and kill her because she took her place. Tracy said, I was watching her and she kind of goes down to her knees on the floor, and I was looking at her and I said, what are you talking about? And she started crying, just a couple of tears coming out of her eyes. Then it was done. Now, again, do you believe this person, Tracy? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, to me, it's still premeditated, right? Let's say she actually did go to kill this other woman that had taken her place or whatever. That's still premeditation. But then you have to figure out, okay, she gets there to his house. That woman's not there. And then what happens to make her kill Travis Alexander? So I don't know. The puzzle pieces don't seem to align perfectly there, but I'm not saying it couldn't be. On March 4th, 2020, the Arizona Court of Appeals upheld Jodi's conviction and life sentence. Her lawyers argued that Jodi was deprived of her right to a fair trial due to prosecutorial misconduct and the judge's failure to control news coverage. The court concluded that Jodi was convicted based on overwhelming evidence of her guilt, but found that prosecutor Juan Martinez did commit misconduct by engaging in self-promotion.
Well, there was that.
Autographs, whatever else he did. The court also condemned Martinez for his argumentative questions, aggressive tone, and bullying behavior. So they came down on this guy pretty hard. But at the end of the day, when they used the phrase overwhelming evidence of her guilt, that means to me, Gibbs, they had no doubt, based on all the evidence presented, because they would have gone through it all, that she was guilty of murdering Travis Alexander. According to Oxygen, Jodi is currently incarcerated at the Perryville prison in Goodyear, Arizona. She was moved there in 2020. She's being held in medium custody after she was downgraded from close custody in February 2021. Jodi worked as a library aide from February 2021 to July 2022. So as we wrap up our two-parter on Jodi Arias, you would have to say that she is one of the most infamous true crime figures of the 21st century, mainly because her trial was so sensational. And why was it? I think you look at the brutality of the crime,
Sure.
the sexual aspects of the case, and the emerging prominence of social media.
And I think you could even throw in some of the religious aspects of it.
Yeah. I mean, but think about social media.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
And go back to some of the older trials before social media. Try to think of what they would have been like had social media existed the way that it has over the last 10, 15, whatever years. The OJ trial.
Oh, yeah.
That one might have broke social media altogether.
Well, if anyone could have, it would have been OJ.
Jodi did have a lot of online supporters. And unlike a lot of other infamous cases, Travis Alexander was not portrayed as what you would call a perfect victim who never did anything wrong. I don't think there's any doubt that he and Jodi had a very volatile, toxic relationship. But even with the things that we know he did, none of that made him deserving of being murdered the way he was.
No.
He may not have been a great guy.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. Some of the things that, were documented, you would say were not the way you would like for your son to behave.
Oh, absolutely.
You would be disappointed if you found out that your son was calling a woman names like that and treating her like that.
Not good.
But again, to be killed the way he was.
Brutal.
Absolutely brutal. But that's it for our episode on Jodi Arias. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hey, this is Travis. I'm Kansas City area. Doesn't matter. But I just, I just finished listening to a recent episode, and when I hear the call-ins, Gibby gets all the love. And I got to say, I'm a fan of Gibby. I love him. Who doesn't love a K-bar knife? He's a quirky dude. But I hear you like bland food. But I just wanted to call in and give some love to Team Mike, because I think he's being a little underappreciated. I think we can all give a little love to Mike. Gibby, you've had enough love. Give a little love to Mike. All right, thank you. Have a good night. Bye.
Wow, thanks for that, Team Gibby. You read between the lines on that one, right?
Yeah, I appreciate it. But I've said this to a lot of people. I feel like I tried to create a scenario early on where you would get this support. I don't know how to say this the way I want it to come out.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like I created a monster.
There is no monster
that I
sitting here.
can't put back in the cage.
And I do like spicy food.
I've eaten with you a lot. You are on the blander side of things.
I like spicy. Maybe I don't like it as spicy as you.
Yeah, I think you're kind of bland. Just from a food standpoint, not from a personality standpoint.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, this is Cody from Oklahoma. I just wanted to call and say that I love you guys. The stories are awesome. I listen to them all the time at work. I also have a side hustle of mowing business. I listen to it when I'm mowing. I've listened to all of the TCAT episodes. I'm working my way through the unsolved. I've probably got about maybe a little bit of a third of them left. Recently, I was just listening to the BTK, Jeffrey Dahmer, and right now I'm going back to listen to the John Wayne Gacy episodes. Anyways, keep doing what you're doing, and we love it out here. I can't choose a team because I think both of you are awesome. So thanks. Bye.
Oh, man, there's another Team Gibby. Thanks, Cody.
No, appreciate it. The nice words. Very, very much.
I wonder how tell us how you get that grass to look two-tone.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
yeah. I actually think I watched a show on that one time.
Did you?
Like how they do Major League Baseball outfields.
Yeah.
But I can't remember how they did it.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make it look amazing.
Well, my grass look like that.
I'm sure you could figure it out. All right, man. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
It was over 30 years ago that Clifford Olson first called me. Secret phone calls from Canada's most notorious serial killer.
I knew I was killing the children, but I couldn't stop myself.
Now it's time to unearth the tapes, because I believe there are still answers to be found. I'm Arlene Bynum from CBC's Uncover, Calls from a Killer. Available now.